Welcome to Running on Reddit r/Bridezillas, where the craziest brides and wedding stories are shared on Reddit. I, a 32-year-old female, got married last month, and it was almost perfect except for my maid of honor, Carly, a 28-year-old. For context, we've been friends 9 years. She has a domineering personality, I'm more quiet. She recently started making tons of money, $170,000, and she complains when other people can't afford to go to nice places she wants. Carly and her husband eloped last year. Only family was invited to the ceremony and had a reception at a nice restaurant 6 months later. We paid $1,600 on travel to be there and $300 on registry gifts because they're our best friends, even though the costs were too much for our current budget. We figured it was worth it for a once-in-a-lifetime event for our favorite people. Bachelorette party. Carly kept dragging bridesmaids into political arguments and privately joked to me about how silly it was about how religious one girl is. During brunch, Carly got in a huge fight with her mom over the phone. She stepped outside, then came back and loudly ranted to any girl who would listen. I tried ending the conversation, but Carly doesn't like being told to wait to talk about something, and in the past has accused me of being unsupportive when I asked if we could talk about something later. Wedding weekend. I rented a big house for all the girls and hubby rented a house for the guys, but Carly and her husband decided they'd rather stay in a nicer hotel nearby. Morning of, Carly was late for makeup and asked me if the artist could also do her hair. We were on a tight schedule. My other bridesmaids got Starbucks for everyone and cooked breakfast and cleaned up the kitchen while Carly walked around on her phone and interrupted the makeup artist to ask when they could start on her. Carly eventually convinced the makeup artist to do her hair, but then she was pissed about the crooked braid, and I heard her complaining 3 different times about what a bad job they did when we are busy trying to get ready in the bridal suite. She also complained to my husband later that night. Lastly, we received their gift 2 weeks after the wedding, a set of nice wine glasses worth $80. We never asked for wine glasses because we have 30 already. I would have preferred a thoughtful card at that point. Now that the wedding's over, I just want to move on with my life. She's not the kind of person who accepts constructive criticism, turns into a barrage of "it didn't happen that way" or "you're wrong because X." So, I don't feel like exerting the mental energy and emotional labor required to reason with someone who'll blame me. That's how our conflicts have gone over in the past, but I'm an introvert with a few close friends, so I never felt like it was worth the possibility of her nuking our friendship. I still care about her, so I feel like a butthole, but I'm also tired of being treated like crap. Introverts know this all too well. Relationships can be a fickle thing, especially when they are chaotic. Press F to pay respects. Bride and groom met at college in a one donkey, too small for a horse, town. They decided to have their wedding and reception on campus, in honor of the place they met. I was appointed maid of honor. And no, bride was not the Zilla. She was anything but. She chose a color at David's bridal and told us to pick whatever style we liked best. She said to get whatever shoes we wanted, as long as they were a certain color. She was chill and pleasant through the entire planning effort. The Zilla was groom's mother. But before we can get there, I have to tell you this bit, because I'm still bitter. As maid of honor, I had the task of finding a decent restaurant for the rehearsal dinner. This was no small feat, as this tiny town in the armpit of the Midwest had little more than greasy diners and fast food chains to offer. But after thorough searching and checking reviews, I actually found a decent place about a mile down the road from the venue. I ran it by bride, she accepted, and I called and put down a $50 deposit. A few days later, bride called me. "Bride, I hate to do this, but we need to change the restaurant." Me, "Okay, what place would you like?" Bride, "Kentucky Fried Chicken." Me, "Huh, why?" Internally, "What the actual hell?" Bride, "Well, groom used to eat there with his grandpa when he came to visit him at school. Grandpa died and can't come to the wedding, so groom wants to eat there in his honor. It means a lot to him." Me, "Well, it's your wedding. We will eat anywhere you want." I called the restaurant and was luckily able to get my deposit refunded. At the time, I was pescatarian, so I wasn't too happy about a place with no fish options, but whatever my sister wanted my sister was getting. The rehearsal arrived. In attendance were the wedding party and bride and groom's parents, as well as the priest, whom we had known for many years. He was invited to dinner too. Enter mother-in-law Zilla. Now, I had only met mother-in-law Zilla once or twice before. She did not approve of bride marrying her perfect only baby. Bride had bent over backwards showering groom's parents with kindness and love, hoping to win her friendship, including going to their house on weekends to do hard manual labor on their yard. Nothing was good enough. Father-in-law liked bride just fine, but he wasn't allowed to show it much because of mother-in-law. Bride eventually gave up but remained cordial. We arrived at the KFC, where mother-in-law Zilla suddenly announced that she would pay only for 3 of the 5 bridesmaids. Priest laughed, then was horrified to realize that no, she was not joking. In the end, my mom had to cover the other 2 bridesmaids. We never found out what mother-in-law Zilla's problem was. After dinner, mother-in-law Zilla made a big show of needing to give groom a wedding present. She pulled him over to her car and banished bride to wait with our family. This was a secret family only inside joke, and only family could stand and watch groom open his present, a garden hose, for some reason. Bride didn't really care, as mother-in-law Zilla was smoking, and bride is sensitive to cigarette smoke. Then, it was time for the big day. Early in the day, mom announced she was going to the chapel to help get things organized. Dad, who doesn't really know social cues, followed us when we went to meet the photographer, who arrived late. He hovered awkwardly nearby while we took pictures, so that the photographer let him be in a couple. Meanwhile, mom was at her wit's end. You need to know, my mother is a sweet, generous, mild-mannered woman who likes to spend her free time praying and knitting hats for the homeless. I'm not exaggerating. She literally does this. But mom has a hard time with big emotional occasions, and that day she was overwrought. Note, my parents are divorced, so weddings in general are hard for mom, let alone her daughter's wedding. It turned out, she hadn't wanted to help at the chapel, but volunteered because she thought she had to. And when she found out my dad got to come for pictures, she was triggered. Well, people kept coming to mom with questions she could not answer. While taking pictures, we got one text after another, with mom obviously getting increasingly overwhelmed. Mom, the girls can't hit the note on the last verse. Bride, no problem. We'll skip that one. And on like that. Then, the texts just stopped. We had to hold photos to go check it out. Mom was disconsolate and wanted to back out of doing her reading during the wedding mass because she was so worked up. My uncle managed to talk her around. We had a beautiful mass up until one of the girls singing fainted due to a nutrition disorder. Sorry, I don't know exactly what the deal was, but she was fine. I wish I could say that was the worst thing that happened today. After the wedding, mother-in-law Zilla struck again. She announced it was time for family-only pictures. She had her own camera and wanted pictures with groom and his parents/uncles. Now, we still needed to finish our regular photos as photographer had been late and we had cut the session short. But, mother-in-law Zilla made us wait almost an hour while she held groom hostage. Bride had literally just married mother-in-law Zilla's son and she was excluded from family pictures. I was disgusted, and I wish I'd been better at confrontation back then, so I could have torn her a new one. We had to take our photos at warp speed because all the guests were waiting for the party to start. And the photographer was terrible because she had been cheap as the wedding was on a shoestring budget. At the venue, mom is again upset. A family friend who RSVP'd no has shown up as a surprise. Not only this, but she has brought a guest, the person who drove her there. Mom is frantic saying, where will we put them? Bride marched over to where some extra folding chairs were stored, yanked 2 out, found a family table, and jammed them into place. There. Now they have a place to sit. And that was that. They weren't even the only wedding crashers. An acquaintance from our church growing up, a real shutterbug, decided to come uninvited and take pictures as a gift. We shoehorned him into a table with a few people he knew. Bride was not happy, but we were all tired, and she didn't feel like making a big stink of it. Now, I didn't know this at the time, but mother-in-law Zilla was disgusted with bride because she sat priest at a certain table. Bride chose this arrangement because the others at that table were priest's favorite people, a family he had known for over 20 years and a few others from the parish. He was extremely happy, as he doesn't like mingling with strangers at weddings because it's awkward. But no, priest should have been in a place of honor, according to mother-in-law Zilla, who was also mad at bride for greeting her own uncles before groom's uncles. Unfortunately, the DJ was just as cheap as the photographer and did a terrible job. He started calling tables, but wasn't easy to hear. While bride and groom were still at the table getting their food, mother-in-law Zilla stood up, and bride, in an honest moment of stress and weariness, said something like, "Oh, sorry, I think it's still our turn." She meant nothing mean at this. She simply was trying to keep everything to plan and caved to nerves. Mother-in-law Zilla threw herself into a chair. "Fine. I'll starve." Later, once we all had our food, mother-in-law Zilla decided to storm out of the reception. I saw none of this myself and heard about it later. What I do remember was looking up from my plate and seeing mom's eyes wide as saucers. "Me, what is it? Mom," scandalized whisper, "I think the mother of the groom has left." I turn around, and, sure enough, there is a mother-in-law Zilla-sized hole at their table. I turned back to mom and shrugged. "Me, more cake for me." Eventually, mother-in-law Zilla's brothers got her to come back, but she was salty the rest of the reception. And she wasn't the only problem. The crappy DJ was not properly announcing events like speeches, cake, etc. Guests had finished eating and looked confused. Many of them got up and just started leaving. By the time we got it sorted out, only about a quarter of the guests were still present. It was the people who mattered most, but bride was still crushed that her big day had gone so totally haywire. To this day, she does not like to talk about this huge sore spot. The next day, things went from bad to worse. Bride and mother-in-law Zilla had some kind of big falling out. I was never privy to the whole story, but mother-in-law Zilla decreed that bride was no longer welcome to visit their home. This was fine by bride, who hated visiting because of the reek of cigarette smoke and the ill treatment she received. Epilogue. When the dust had settled, I was in my room packing up. I noticed something weird stuck to my foot. I tried to flick it off, then realized it was my foot. The sandals I had worn had been hurting me, but I ignored it because the pain wasn't bad. But they had left a half grape-sized blister on my foot. My mom, a retired nurse, said it was the biggest one she had ever seen. What is it with me and terrible wedding shoes? I went to dinner the day after the wedding with mom and one of the groomsmen to the restaurant I had chosen. It was an out-of-the-way little place, rustic and dark with ambient lighting. I had one of the best salmon burgers I've ever been served and a perfect amaretto sour. So, yes, I felt vindicated. Bride and mother-in-law Zilla don't really speak to this day. But, I'm happy to announce that my first niece or nephew is on the way, so mother-in-law Zilla seems to be softening up a bit. The wedding day may not have been a hit, but bride and groom are living happily ever after in their happy marriage, gorgeous house, good jobs, and soon to be new addition. Yikes. This wedding ordeal was quite the mess. From the sounds of it, there were many impulsive decisions. My cousin is supposed to be getting married in July. There's a chance that everything is going to be okay by then, but who knows? But this isn't about that. Me and two of my other cousins are supposed to be going to the bachelorette, which was originally scheduled for the beginning of May, and the shower is scheduled to the end of May. Batch weekend was moved to the beginning of June. One of my cousins is under mandatory travel ban in Virginia until the 10th and can't go on the new date, and my other cousin and I don't feel comfortable going because we're in New Jersey and we don't think we'll be totally clear to travel by then. So we contact bride and maid of honor, another cousin, her younger sister, to back out, and they tell us not to. Maybe things will change. They suggested we wait until May 1st before making our decision. We were supposed to go away for a weekend, so they booked a house for the group. They contacted everyone about the backup date for the batch, but then booked the second date without getting RSVPs. The deposit was down for the original house, and now some of us will not be able to attend. It's starting to look like we won't be getting the money we put down back. We put money towards the house plus activities at venues that probably will not be open. Additionally, I got an invite for her shower today at the end of May, with no note about what will happen if it can't happen that day. There was a note about gifting the bride and groom lottery tickets though, which is not something I've ever seen. I just can't tell if my cousin is purposefully being dismissive or if she's just in denial that her whole wedding and all associated events might have to be pushed. I mean, it sucks, but like, it's a global pandemic. We can't all get what we want in life. Bride throws wedding during COVID-19. Death has joined the chat. If you like the content and want to support the channel, like and subscribe right now, or you'll be running on fumes. My brother, 40, and his wife, 35, got married on Sunday. I, 22, am pretty close with my brother, but not his wife, so while I was a guest, I wasn't in the bridal party. They got married at a somewhat local mansion, which is actually pretty affordable for a wedding venue. The dress code on the invitation was formal. For the 3 weddings I've been to with formal dress codes, and the 8 I've been to semi-formal dress codes, the implication was always that it meant professional hair and makeup. That is how my whole family took the dress code, so we all coordinated appointments. A few of us actually went together and had a makeup artist from a few towns over come in, so my sister-in-law could hire locally. Well, when we got there, her family looked good, but their hair and makeup were clearly not professionally done. When her bridesmaids came out, it was apparent they hadn't used a professional either, nor had she. It was kind of awkward in pictures, but I didn't really see a big deal. Well, yesterday, I got a barrage of messages from the bridal party, her mother, and the bride herself about my family trying to upstage her, and that sort of thing. Quite a few other relatives got the messages too, including my grandmama. FYI, my brother thought I looked pretty and didn't see an issue except, when did you become a woman? I've tried explaining that it was a miscommunication, but they're having none of it. Communication could have prevented this situation. But assumptions are just easier. I need to vent. So, my future stepdaughter will be getting braces soon. Our wedding is May 23rd, the appointment is for May 7th. I'm upset because I had braces just a few years ago, and you smile weird for the first few months and braces photograph terribly, and she's 11, so she will probably get bright color bands. Her mom says there is no way that she is changing the appointment, that it's ridiculous I would even think she should. My future husband says I'm being ridiculous, that it's not a big deal. What's your opinion? Am I overreacting? This is a $15,000 wedding that I have worked my butt off to pay for, and I want these pictures to be perfect. Also, it's my first wedding / his second, so it's a lot bigger deal to me than him. Take into consideration that when I met my now stepdaughter, I told them that she needed braces and my future husband and her mom both said her teeth was perfect. This has been going on for 2 years now, and they insisted her teeth was perfect and she didn't need braces. November she went to the dentist, and he said she needed braces, but her mom just wanted to wait. Now nothing has been said about it and all of a sudden her mom mentions it and says she's scheduling it for May 7th, which seems to me that it's out of spite. To think braces could be a superpower, they postpone weddings and photo shoots, thus encouraging social distancing. Let me know in the comments below, what would be your superpower? Thanks for watching. Remember to subscribe and turn on the bell or you'll be running on fumes. See you in the next video.